Good morning, everyone. My name is Doug Miles from AIIM Europe, and I'm speaking to you today from the AIIM offices in Worcester. We plan to run for about an hour today, and the last 10 or 15 minutes will be a Q&A session. After some opening remarks from myself, we're going to hear what I think is actually a very reassuring case study of how Avis embraced document capture and electronic workflows and VPN to solve a specific problem and achieved a very impressive result, I think. So I'm joined today by Chris Soanes, who's been a key member of the Avis team on this. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning.
Where are you talking to us today from, Chris?
I'm sitting in Bracknell today.
Thank you, Luke. And also Luke McFarlane from Perceptive Software. Hello, Luke.
Good morning, Doug.
And whereabouts are you?
I'm actually at home today, working at home.
Ah, okay. That's what you tell the boss. Okay. Right. Well, just a quick advertorial for AIIM here. We're, of course, the community for education, research and best practices to help organisations find, control and optimise their information, it says there. We operate worldwide as a membership association for both vendors and end users of ECM products and technologies. We've got 35 plus staff in offices in Washington, DC in the US and here in Worcester, and we've been going for about 60 years. We started out as the Microfilm Association. Perceptive Software are a key member both in Europe and in the US. One of our key missions is training. We do both public classes in the UK and in the Netherlands. We do in-house workshops anywhere in Europe or US, but also we do run training classes in the US and Canada. And these are our up-and-coming courses. So there's an ECM course running in a week's time, which are maybe a couple of places still left on if you can make it. And then again in London in January. And BPM, particularly relevant to today's discussion, in the third week in February there. Now, my particular baby within AIIM is the Market Intelligence Department. I run that for AIIM worldwide, and we publish a number of research reports and white papers throughout the year on a variety of topics, generally based on survey feedback from our 65,000 member community of users worldwide. These reports are all free to download from the web, but not right now. But that's the URL you would need, and we just ask for registration, and then the reports are free. And these are fairly substantial reports. So, one of the things that struck me when I listened to Chris from Avis was that he described the implementation of what, in some respects, is a classic ECM system, as in content management across the enterprise. But he comes at it from a completely different approach, a completely business process angle, in fact. But it's not actually quite that. What they wanted to do was to centralize transaction processing across a wide geography, but didn't want paper invoices and all the supporting documents to be traipsing across half of Europe. And the sort of thing that comes out strongly is that a centralized content management system sort of fell out of the project almost as a byproduct of the business process re-engineering, and that the co-location with the operations staff and then integration with the transaction system was fundamental to the benefits achieved. But more of that later. But you know, it is quite an interesting element of how the task was driven by a business rationalization. The first view of the project was let's put in invoice capture and process automation around that, or even document scanning in the first instance. And then from that came the benefit of those documents being available to everybody else within the business. So how do we match integration and consolidation on the transactional side with integration of our content? And what benefits do we get if we do that? So integration is the theme of my introduction, really. And I often like to go back to how did we get to where we are today? I built up this picture in my mind of ECM. I started my career as a hardware engineer, so I always like to look at things in a block diagram sort of way rather than a software, archery target kind of way as everybody else does. And so here we have the essence of document management going back in time. Scan stuff in, store it, make it available through search to read on screen or as a print on demand. And then what we did was we added records management to provide an archive store and some long-term retention policies. And we also added workflow to move the scanned images around the office in order to get things done. And then when you start workflowing things like invoices and application forms and so on, as we're going to hear later, you need some integration into the transactional processes. And it becomes a bit more of a business process management or BPM kind of thing. And one of the elements of that is that you do need to start talking to your ERP system or your finance system, possibly your CRM system and your HR system. And as time has gone on, bigger organizations collect different document management systems, often through acquisitions and mergers. When we do our survey, 40% of the organizations we survey have 3 or more ECM systems. And in larger organizations, it can be 72% that have 3 or more and 25% have 5 or more. So if we're going to call what we're aiming for an integrated content management and universal access system, we have to bear in mind that these legacy document archives and these enterprise system document archives are all sitting out there and need to be connected in order to provide part of the picture. So we need to add these to the model so that our search function becomes more of a portal, looking into these different content repositories, including the ones inside those systems and the ones outside. And notice also now that ECM includes more document types. So moving on from scanned paper documents, we pull in electronic files, but also rich media like pictures and voice recordings and videos. And we're also capturing facts now at that capture front end there. And of course, transactional systems don't really understand the ideas of retention periods and legal hold. So you want to extend records management to underlie those systems too. And that's something that comes out of the Avis story as well. And the records management area does what they call the heavy lifting of compliance management and litigation support, is what the Americans would say. And one of the ways there are various ways to do this. You can either do manage in place, or you can sweep your records into an RM system, or you can declare them from within the RM system, in the active document system, into a records management managed mode. Then the other thing, at this point, emails come along, and they raise this idea of a common capture platform, capturing data for auto-classification on entry to the business, rather than relying on people to file things, as well as subsequent processing. And we can extend that to include a digital mail room, scanning all of the inbound mail and auto-routing it. And one of the elements from the Avis case study is a mail box number, which forms the funneling of documents into the system. You'll also notice this addition to the search portal, which adds an element of business intelligence to the search and lets you do all sorts of analytics across both the unstructured data in the ECM system and the structured data in ERP and CRM and so on. And also maybe looking across the output archive. If you output from the system to customers in the way of bills and customer contract confirmations and things, then we could go straight to archive from there. We then can get this social and collaboration layer, something which AIIM is quite keen to take a lead on, which might be standalone or it might be part of the ERP or the CRM. Notice that we now get lots of additional inputs to capture, instant messages and web forms and social content and so on. And of course, PDF files, especially with invoice processing, a high proportion of invoices now come in on PDFs attached to emails. So we need to deal with that in exactly the same way, and it needs to be fed through the same process. We don't want to have to set up separate processes just because it originated in electronic format. And the same happens at the other end, where we need to communicate back to customers in emails and texts and on web pages and Facebook even and so on. So that's how it all comes together. Simple. Except, of course, there are a lot of interfaces going on here which could potentially be a huge headache if your ECM vendor isn't adept at supporting your combination of enterprise systems. And there can be big differences here between vendor products that are largely organically grown and those that have been patched together via acquisition. And the BPM that's in here could be driving an invoice processing workflow, or it could be running an HR process or a project proposal process. So that too needs to be quite flexible, and it's best if you don't need armies of consultants or worse still, development engineers to change it. Then we also have to throw some extra issues, like we might be considering outsourcing for the capture side of things. We might be using a software as a service or a a centralized common service requirement as crops up in Avis. We may be looking at cloud. At what point does the corporate common service system become a cloud in effect? And maybe in your business you've got a Sharepoint element to bring in as well. But one of the issues that kicks in when you have all these levels of integration is who makes the decisions. Capture and BPM tend to be a line of business or IT. ECM tends to be records management or IT as well. And Sharepoint is almost exclusively IT, or nobody frequently. And one thing that comes out of this story is that you can't let departmental boundaries get in the way of seeing the picture that we've just painted. You need to work with other people in those other departments to ensure that happens. So I just thought I'd add a few additional slides before how Chris's project went at Avis. So this is what other people in the AIIM community have said, and in fact may prompt some questions for the UN. So what were the biggest management issues you experienced during the implementation of Capture and PPM? Well, user resistance to change is always a frequent one. Lack of understanding within the business of what BPM is something that webinars like this, we're constantly trying to raise understanding of how business process management works as a process on top of or supervising the things that go on in the business, and extending process ownership across the departmental boundaries was an issue there as well. And then what were the biggest technical issues you experienced during implementation? Well, we said it, integration with other systems. Underestimated the time required to map and agree on processes. This is something that frequently crops up. People actually don't usually know quite how their own processes work. It always amuses me when you get into an implementation meeting and you have all the different owners around the room of the process and the participants, and then they all start squabbling as to how things actually do happen. And you see a bit further down there, unexpected exception requirements and the difficulty of adapting the system to process changes. So once you get the system up and running, you may not have quite got it right, or you may want to change it as the process changes. And what you need there is flexibility in order to be able to do that. But having said that, the payback period that people in the AIIM community have, every time I ask this question, what payback period would you say you've achieved or are on track to achieve? 46% achieve a payback in 12 months or less. That's one budget period. And 64% in 18 months or less. So this stuff does seem to work. It does seem to produce benefits both from a productivity point of view and from a customer service point of view. And in fact, we'll see a couple of those on the next two slides and also from Chris's presentation. So we asked this question on one of our surveys: by how much do you think customer service levels and response times could be or have been improved if all of your customer-facing staff could immediately access and share all of the customer-related and case-related information that you hold, including the latest inbound correspondence? And it turns out that I didn't actually set this graph going down far enough. You know, the majority are saying between 25 and 33% improvement. The median's at 31%. And the interesting thing there is that the people who said it could be, i.e. who don't have direct experience, underestimated slightly compared to those who say what it has been. So generally speaking, there's a good response here from these benefits in terms of customer efficiency. And then also, in terms of the workflow, how much more productive do you think the administrative staff in your organization would be or are if their processes were workflowed using scanned forms and documents with automated data capture? And that's exactly what Avis did. And you know, again, we get numbers down here, 50% more productive. And the average is 33%. And the would-bes, the people who were making a projection, came in at 23%, whereas the people who said we have done this came in at 35%. So actual benefits and actual productivity gains are better than most users' expectations. Okay, so that's sending a picture of what we're going to hear about next. So just before I sign off, I measure all these things in AIIM surveys, and I know that Chris is going to come up with some similar numbers. So you can follow this up after the webinar. In particular, I would point you in the direction of the Capture and Business Process Report. So at that point, I'd like to hand over to Chris for his presentation there.
Thanks, Doug. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Chris Soanes and I currently work for Avis Budget EMEA Limited. My role is European Relationship Manager and I look after customer billing and document scanning. Today we're going to talk to you about what Avis did with perceptive software and our use of the ImageNow product in our business. First I'll start with a little introduction of Avis. Avis EMEA Group is a leading car rental company across the European market. We're in Europe, Middle East and Africa. We have lots of corporate countries, 12 corporate countries and about 100 other licensee areas. We have about 5,000 staff across 3,600 different locations in various countries. And recently, on Monday the 3rd of October, we were purchased by our group, Avis Budget Group, which now makes us a leading, or the first company, to have a dual global car rental offering across a worldwide scope. So we're fully integrated with all our American cousins now. So back in 2004, Avis decided that they wanted to create a centre of excellence for their back office processing. Some of the tasks that they were looking to move to this centre of excellence would include accounts receivables, accounts payables, some general ledger processing and some non-voice customer service activity. The decision was made to create a shared service centre out in Budapest, and that would allow for some benefits in terms of wage savings. Previously, administration was done at big city locations like Frankfurt, Rome, Paris and even London, and by moving to a shared service centre environment we were able to reduce those wage costs quite significantly. To help facilitate that move into a shared service centre, we were looking for a product which would allow us to share documents across different locations without having to have the mail moved from location to location and incurring lots of heavy mailing or courier charges. When we were centralising, we were taking processes from 12 different offices which were across 11 different countries, and so this was a key element to us to making sure that we weren't saving on one hand with the staff costs but then increasing in terms of timing and costs for moving documents about. So that's where we were first introduced to perceptive software. What stood out about perceptive software was that from having processes across 11 different countries, we were also inheriting 11 different countries' systems, and so their ease of integration into multiple different systems made it a very appealing system for us, and meant that setting up out there with perceptive software would not take as long as other systems because of the ease of technology and the ease of integration. Making sure that we were able to workflow documents around, because even though the processors and administrators of the documents would be out in Budapest, some of the owners and the approvers would actually still be in the countries. So having a workflow system as well with things like annotations and highlights and things like that was also key to us, and that's a fundamental part of what Perceptive were offering us. So again, made them stand out against some of the other competitors. Low management and development costs going forward also stood out for us. It was very obvious that going forward we weren't going to have to pay massive development costs every time we wanted to change. We could bring things in-house and we could run things going forward internally without needing masses of development. So one of the first processes that we moved across was some database activity. What we have is a loyalty system called Avis Preferred, and to sign up for that you have to go to a paper-based form, fill that in and send that in. Now we wanted that activity of keying those paper forms into our database located in Budapest. So all of those forms needed to be sent to the normal head offices. We didn't want customers having to pay for expensive post out to Budapest, but we needed to get those documents quickly out to Budapest so that they could key them in. So what we did was we sent documents to the HQs. They would be scanned in there, and then they would be indexed in Budapest, and then they could be workflowed around should that be required for additional approvals or things like that. The challenges that we were facing without ImageNow were the possibility of having to ship or courier things. That takes multiple days, up to 10 days from some countries. A high chance that documents would get lost when you start putting things into international mail, and a lack of visibility because you never know at what stage the document's at when things are lost in post or in post rooms and things like that. So those were the kind of challenges that we were facing. The process we put in place was a very simple one. Documents came into a central location, a head office in a country. They were then scanned into the Perceptive software database. From there, they could be indexed. Once they were indexed, a notification would be sent to our shared service centre saying that a document is there and it's ready to be worked on. That person could then pick it up, process it in the system, so it is in our preferred database, and then later on it would be easily retrievable for queries or for updates and things like that. And the integration with the system meant that at any point we could open up a preferred profile and within one simple click see the form that was attached and see any relevant documents that related to that person's sign-up. So the major benefits of this were labour savings. It took less people to work on these documents because they were already indexed by the time they got to Budapest. There was an overall saving in time because without the ImageNow software being able to share those documents, these documents would have been wasting time in the post, and we want our customers to be signed up quickly and efficiently and to know that once they're signed up, it only takes a few days for them to be able to start renting with us. We talked about the postage. Things do get lost in the post. We all know that. It's a fact of life. And so by having a reduced amount of postage, we were able to make sure that less documents were lost and they're in the system. And there was a reduced amount of storage because once documents were scanned in, which previously they weren't, we were able to just discard them. They weren't physical documents. We were able to just remove them from the system, so storage costs were also greatly reduced. One of the surprising benefits was an increased customer satisfaction, because actually what we've done was taken the lead time of processing these documents from 10 days down to 1 day, and so customers were able to receive their preferred sign-ups a lot quicker and start renting and trading with us a lot faster. Another process that we moved across into Perceptive Software's processing was our invoice process. And in particular, the German case was a unique example. Previously, we would have invoices come into about 300 different rental locations, and before they could go for payment, they would have to be approved by maybe a regional office, sometimes a head office, and so moving those documents around was particularly difficult, even within a country. So introducing a shared service process into that was making things extremely difficult. So the challenge was making sure that we didn't have documents lost in post and lost in transit for 6 weeks just being approved before going for payment, making sure that we weren't incurring any late payment fees from suppliers, and making sure that there wasn't any risk of duplicate payments, because what would often happen is that as these documents were being worked around, suddenly payment would need to be made very, very quickly. And so we would go to a process where we'd make a quick payment outside of the normal system, and then that normal invoice would flow through and get paid as well. So making sure everything was in one place and we knew what would happen to that document helped reduce the amount of duplicate payments that we made. So the process that we put in was a very simple one. All the invoices were sent to a PO box. From there, they get couriered directly to Budapest. In Budapest, they would then be scanned and indexed in the system, so that from that point onwards, we could then workflow the documents out for approval really quickly, If there was multiple approvals required, that could all be done at the same time. We no longer had to wait for a document to be passed from one desk to another desk, or from one location even to another location. And then finally, payment would be made on a timely fashion, so we weren't incurring any late fees, and we had happy suppliers. Overall, the benefits of this process were that the processing time was greatly reduced. Previously, things could take 4 to 6 weeks, whereas as soon as a document hit the ImageNow system now, things could be workflowed around and ready for payment, possibly within the same day. The approval process was able to stay in Germany, therefore the expertise and the local knowledge was in Germany, whereas the processing could go out to Budapest, therefore still sticking with our shared service centre ethos. One of the biggest points was that sharing information and ease of information was key in this process. When a supplier calls up, we need to be able to give them accurate information and quick information to alleviate any queries that they may have. And having everything in one system meant that we could do that, and that we weren't having a rental station give one piece of information which differed from potentially another location. Taking out mailing means that we reduce the chance of losing invoices. It also means that we can process documents quicker, and therefore may benefit from paying in advance or paying a little bit earlier. It also means that we reduce the risk of paying late and therefore incurring any charges for paying late. Overall, we felt that the control of this entire process was a lot tighter, and in particular in the cash flow area, because we weren't having to make as many emergency payments, and payments were therefore being made at a time when we wanted and within our control. Another process that we've put into our shared service centre using the help of perceptive software would be invoice processing, but this time using data capture. So data capture is a technology which is able to look at a piece of paper and intelligently read it and take out key parts of information. So reducing the amount of time that a human person needs to spend looking at a document and doing what is considered a non-value task. So we had lots of Spanish AP invoices that we wanted to process quickly. We sent large samples of our 10 major customers off to Perceptive, and they did a lot of work with data capture, analysing these documents and making sure that they could be read by their system. The process that was then implemented was a simple one. Things were scanned into the ImageNow database. Data capture would read the document, extract the relevant information in a seamless process. That would be filled into a e-form where a little bit of checking would be done by someone junior in the office just to make sure that everything had been read correctly. But then, in most cases, things would then go straight through to our finance system in an automatic fashion. So we took out all that manual keying that someone would previously had to do by reading the document and then interpret that into a finance system with an automated upload, so that things could then go into our finance system and be workflowed round in the normal AP process to customers quickly. So that's been working really well now for quite some time. We have that up and running for all our Spanish customers, so it's widely spread use. We don't have many people looking at these documents to check now. The hit rate is very high, and only junior people need to log in and just do random checks every now and again. The technology has worked very well, and now we're looking at the feasibility of using that in other areas. So our main corporate countries are the UK, France, Italy, and even Germany. So we're seeing if it's viable to put this technology into their documents as well. So where's Perceptive Software and Avis today? Well, all our employees are no longer having to do lots of manual tasks. ImageNow has greatly reduced the need for unimportant work. We have more staff doing value-added tasks and not simple things like processing or workflowing documents. So we've really allowed our staff to be value-added people and not just random processors. We have about 800 users using the system at different times, and that's spread across all our corporate countries. So that's 12 different offices and 14 different locations. So that's really good, and it's fully integrated with all our legacy systems and works absolutely seamlessly. We've greatly reduced our times to process documents, which means people, again, can get on with value-added tasks, which is important to us, and do proper decision making instead of just processing time. The system is very self-sufficient. We hardly ever have to call Perceptive to do any kind of maintenance or everything else. We look after everything ourselves. We can administer ourselves, and day to day there really isn't much to do. Once it's integrated, in my opinion, it does just work. And staff have the ability to maintain workflows and create things when they need them. It's not a static system. If we do need to make changes, it's not difficult. We can just integrate them when we need them. Overall, as a move from various locations to a shared service centre, we've made lots of efficiencies. In terms of cost, staff costs are up to 2/3 cheaper in some instances. Using Image Now, we don't have massive storage costs because documents are digitally archived, and so we don't have that involved. And because we can scan documents in at various locations across our group, we don't have massive courier charges or mailing charges for moving documents from one location to the other. So overall, the move has been very successful, and a key part of that was the use of the Perceptive software technologies. In summary, my view of the system and Perceptive software overall is that things are easy in 3 key ways. Easy to implement across various front and back office systems, which means that I get a quick return on investment. Easy to train, which means that implementation times and new staff turn-ups are greatly reduced. And easy to maintain going forward, because I can make change very, very quickly, and I can keep my overall running costs particularly low. That's it from me. If you'd like any more information, then please visit Perceptive Software's website at www.perceptivesoftware.co.uk. And I'm now going to hand over to Luke McFarlane from Perceptive.
Thanks, Chris. Hi, I'm Luke McFarlane. I'm Senior Account Manager with Perceptive Software. What I'd like to do now is introduce you to Perceptive Software and what we do. I will hand back to Doug Miles at the end of the session so we can take questions from the audience. So a brief introduction to who we are. Perceptive Software has over 15 years expertise in enterprise content management, software and solutions. And this is proved testament with the fact that we have 2,500 customers in over 30 countries using and implementing our software. We are headquartered out of Kansas in the US. We have regional offices throughout Europe and the Middle East and Africa, places such as London, Frankfurt and Paris, as well as Latin America and Asia Pacific. In June 2010, we were acquired by the Lexmark International organisation, an organisation with a $4 billion turnover, and the Perceptive Software team is expanding its operations within the Lexmark organisation. Perceptive at this point operates as a standalone business organisation within the Lexmark group, and we've been recognised by several bodies within the technology space who recognise Perceptive as one of the largest ECM providers in the world. Give you an idea of our pedigree and some of the customers that we work with. This is focused around broad, deep and back office experience solutions. And this is testament with the fact that we have over 650 customers using our specific solutions around accounts payable, HR and other back office system areas. And again, its benefits can be realised regardless of scale. So we have organisations who have small departmental solutions, maybe up to 10 users, ranging up to customers who have tens of thousands of seat users within our system. It's deployed in a variety of all the major industries, ranging from insurance, retail, manufacturing, healthcare, as well as higher education and public sector. And again, our major customers include organisations such as Avis EMEA, Lloyds Bank, Acheives, as well as organisations such as Capgemini. And one of our key differentiators in the marketplace is our ability to integrate seamlessly with major ERP vendors such as Oracle, PeopleSoft and Microsoft, as well as AP systems such as Lawson and other financial systems. In terms of our product set, to give you an overview of that, this is very much focused around three key areas. Our platform, which provides the capabilities for document storage, our products, which deliver the ECM suite to our customers, and the specific point solutions that deliver the real business value to our users. So, starting with our platform, it's very much an open system, which provides rapid integration options. It's built on a robust service-orientated architecture framework, and is supported by industry standards in terms of its integration capabilities. It's reliable, built on modular architecture with built-in systems monitoring as well as a continuing testing philosophy. It's very much a scalable system, as I mentioned, ranging from a 10-user organisation up to a 30,000-seat organisation, and it's built upon a hybrid data model. It's very secure. It means that users only get access to the right information that's available to them, and it provides flexible access and extensive system auditing. And it's very much a fast system, built on native C++ server technology, and it goes through rigorous performance testing. In terms of our product set, this very much makes up our enterprise content management suite. In terms of some of those individual components of the enterprise content management suite, firstly, that starts with document imaging, the initial capture process. So whether that's distributed capture, if it's in a network organisation where they're capturing documents from across different regional European offices, that can be captured within our system. Whether customers are looking at automated indexing and linking of documents to within their ERP system, as well as other features such as advanced optical character recognition technology. This means that content extraction is automated and validated within the process. We also have advanced document management capabilities. This provides effortless version control, robust search technologies, and it holds granular document security within the product. And it means also that plugins for content authors can be managed seamlessly. We also have powerful electronic forms capability embedded within the product. This has a very strong forms designer. It's a standard-based forms product. And it also means that portal integration can be made available for documents within the system that advance its capabilities out to external sources. We also have workflow capabilities within a product, very user-friendly product. That means the workflow designer can be pretty much used by anybody within an organisation. And it has document and task-based rule styles. So again, it's very simple and easy for users to design their own processes, and it can be managed in a very seamless way. We also have records management as well as information management capabilities within a product. This manages retention policies. That means that when a document needs to be retired and moved off the system, that disposition schedule can be managed in an automated fashion, as well as providing secure legal and audit trails. And finally, we move into our back office solution area, which is really key. It's about solving business process challenges for our users, and it puts our content in context. So we focus around different areas such as finance or accounts payable. We have invoice processing capabilities, whether it be electronic or advanced. And again, we can move into different areas such as procurement and supplier management. So requisition and purchase order processing can be automated. And we also have capabilities around managing expense procedures, so that as an employee wishes to scan expenses into a system, those can be captured, stored within a document, and then routed around an organisation in a much more seamless fashion. And this greatly smooths out the process. Another strong capability of ours is around HR. We have a number of different processes which can be managed within an HR function, such as employee management, so that all employee records are stored within a single area, and therefore control and security is maintained within our system, as well as different processes such as recruitment and onboarding, so that again that process can be automated, and then those documents can be securely held during the lifetime of that employee. And then again, this also provides clear audit trail capabilities, so that at some point, if we need to go back into the system and look through those documents and records, they can be managed seamlessly. And finally, we have contract management. So whether a contract is created by a single author in Microsoft Word, we can actually manage that process and then secure that document within our repository. And again, when documents or contracts need to be renewed and approved, that workflow process can be managed within our system. And then again, that facilitates the approval process going forward. So in summary, this is about putting this content in context. It's about making the right information available to users at the right time in a secure fashion. Before I hand back to Doug and take questions from the audience, I'd just like to remind you that more information.
Okay, thanks very much there, Luke and Chris, for a very smooth presentation. So we've got some reasonable time left for questions. I've got just a couple to ask Chris, I think, just to kick us off, and then there's plenty more have come in, but while you're thinking about it, Chris, excuse me, your finance system that you use there, which system is that?
We use a finance system called Coda Financials.
Mm-hmm. And was that put in new for this project, or was it something you were using before?
Actually, it was put in shortly after. Initially, we'd picked a product which, after a very expensive implementation, we didn't end up implementing, and about 18 months, 2 years later, we put in Coda Financials.
Okay, sounds like there's a story to be told there, but we won't go too far into that. But in terms of integration, therefore, in terms of when you came to do the capture things and so on, technically, were there issues that were difficult to solve, or did you find that was straightforward?
No, the integration was very smooth. As I said in my presentation, the learn mode technology that comes with the ImageNow product is very good, and we're yet to find one of our systems they can't integrate with. And when it came to the Coda Financials implementation, we ended up using a lot of the WebNow technology so that we could hit links within Coda and its existing functionality to then go off and make WebNow calls and retrieve documents that way. So no, it was all pretty smooth.
Okay. And I'm going to have three questions because I'm just waiting for other people to come in. There are a few up there. I talked in my presentation about change management, and you've, to some extent, explained the sort of business process and technical side of things. What were the aspects of how you got your staff geared up on this, and how people responded, and what was the overall sort of scenario there?
Generally speaking, I find that ImageNow is very easy to train. The functionality is pretty self-explanatory. So I went on a mini tour of Europe, but didn't really need to spend any more than a day in any one country just training people who could then go on and train others. And you don't tend to get too many questions after that. People can pretty much work things out for themselves. From a cultural point of view, we're a company that tends to have staff that have been around for many, many years, so can remember times when they didn't even have computers to process things. So there was a degree of staff where who weren't as comfortable taking their paper away, but after a few days or weeks using the system, they soon come round to the benefits of having things there at the touch of a button, the ease of filing, the clean desks that they now have to not have paper piled up, and everyone comes round in the end. It's just that initial shock of not having that piece of paper to touch and feel and bring up to your nose so that you can look at the smallest detail. Once they get over that, it's fine.
Okay. You can't use a magnifying glass on the screen. It won't show you any more, will it?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Now, there's a couple of questions that have come through. They're both to do with the location you chose to capture your invoices, for example. So one person's saying, I heard the documents are sent to the headquarters and scanned there. Why not digitizing or scanning in the front office?
We implemented several different systems, processes, depending on the process at hand. So and depending on the country, to be honest. Within our shared service centre in Budapest, what we ended up creating was a scanning hub. So there is a team of 4 people that take mail in each day, sort that out, and then go and scan away. But we also do some scanning locally in the countries as well. This was a lot based on business cases. So in some countries, international mailing was prohibitive for sending things directly to the shared service centre. PO boxes help. We don't want customers having to pay expensive international mailing rates to send us invoices, for example. So depending on the business case in each country, we made a decision that way. A lot of the decisioning behind moving to Budapest was that the staff rates there are so much cheaper, and so after this process was finished, a lot of the countries, some of the smaller countries in particular, like Belgium, Holland, Portugal, for example, didn't have many staff left in country. So to then say, okay, we need you to sit around and scan invoices wasn't viable. So in those cases, we'd have things sent directly to the shared service centre.
Okay, that's interesting, yes, because as you said, their quality of job, the ones who you have there now, is improved, and so you don't want to put them back into the drudge kind of jobs.
Yep.
Question though that's quite interesting. Did you consider using EDI with your main partners just to get the paper out of it in the first place?
Yeah, a lot of the delay was on EDI was down to implementing a standard financial system. So as I say, once we moved a lot of these processes across, we didn't have a standard core financial system to quite a few years afterwards. That is now embedded and working okay. However, due to the change of ownership that we're now under, because we have American owners now, we need to be SOX compliant. There is a consideration, and there is the possibility that may change again. So rather than go down the path of implementing an EDI solution, which then may have to change if we change systems again, we thought to put that on the back burner for now and continue with the paper processing until we're in a more stable position and we knew more about what the future holds.
So it's quite interesting, that, really, and I think other people find that the risk factor of EDI, the time it takes and the hassles and the partner cooperation you need, actually a paper to scan to capture system is more robust and more flexible in many ways. Yep,
yeah, I'd go along with that.
Okay. Right, let me just see if I can pick up a couple of the other questions here. Do you have an auto-approve functionality? Is it possible to have an auto-approve functionality? It's a question for Chris or Luke. Luke, would you like to come in there?
Yeah, I mean, again, that really depends on the kind of requirements that they've got within the host ERP or financial system to auto-approve. Obviously, if the information coming through on the invoice is correct and it matches up, that can go through to straight-through processing. However, it would also depend on, whether that validation has taken place. Some customers look to put a particular value on an automatic approval function. So anything below, say, for example, an invoice for £500 can route through an auto-approve function. So it's very much down to, customers' specific requirements for validation.
I guess the thing to remember is that it's at the other end of the spectrum where you have the ones that do have to be signed off and do need the accompanying documents and the justifications and so on before they get signed off at high level. You are able to circulate these completely transparently, that there's no transit time and so on in the system.
The other thing that would help with automatically approving, and where ImageNow can help in particular, is that if you're using some of the data capture and telecapture type products, when you're receiving documents that have got POs on them, then obviously POs don't need that extra level of approval. So, as long as it's within the tolerances of the PO, then again it can be workflowed straight into your financial system and be paid without anyone having to get involved manually in the process.
Yeah, that's very true. I used to have a financial controller who would always put invoices in his top left drawer if there wasn't a PO involved. And then weeks after you're trying to get the payment made, he'd say, well, did you actually raise a purchase order? Okay. Question maybe for Pete, if you'd like to come feature on the technical side, and I'm not sure that I know the nuances of the question. Is your software integrated in your ERP or interface to it?
Okay, hi there. Yeah, the software would be, well, we call it integration, but very much sort of interfaced. So generally we will connect with the front end of any ERP system or finance system. So that's what we call our sort of non-programmatic integration. Although, you know, as Chris mentioned, perhaps with their solution, they are using sort of dynamic hyperlinks, which can take them straight into the web version of the application as well. But obviously, that's perhaps that requires a little bit more technical assistance to do that. Whereas the non-integrated learn mode approach is very much we can integrate with the front end of any application very, very quickly.
Okay.
I think the other thing to add there, Doug, is that, and what is key, is there are many options around integration, interfacing with systems. We're not prescriptive in terms of one specific type. We would rather provide our customer with different variations of, you know, a light touch or a more tightly integrated solution, and then we can go with what fits for their organisation.
And I noticed, Luke, that you had on your slide, but you didn't mention that you do SAP integration. Must be one of your more popular.
Yes, we do. We've got again, you know, specifically our accounts payable solution around SAP is very tight. We have integrated that with several hundred customers across the globe, and it's very much one of our preferred business partners. So, as well as, you know, people like Microsoft Dynamics and Oracle, again, you know, SAP is a key vertical, key sort of industry area for us.
Okay, good. And Coda is more of a European product, I think, isn't it? So that's interesting, yeah. Okay, there's a question here that perhaps broadens the mind a bit. Are any of the documents that are scanned available to partners through the archive system?
If I jump in on that one, Doug. Yeah, one of the things that we talk about frequently with customers is making these invoices available via a portal to their partner community, so that obviously their suppliers can go in and view the status of that. So that's kind of a frequent area that we build on with customers, is kind of maybe phase 2 or phase 3 of a project. They say, okay, how can we further add value to this solution? How can we take kind of our processes back out and essentially put those on the supplier to actually manage on our behalf? So again, that comes sort of second or third phase to a project.
So this is almost a self-service approach that you're saying there.
Exactly. It's about putting onus and sort of time consumption onto that supplier to manage that, the statuses of invoice. And again, it gives them enhanced benefits because they're essentially seeing when they're getting paid.
Yeah. And I think there's quite an interesting thing in Chris's bit earlier, which I think is what comes up on this. Everybody thinks that an invoice automation process gets the payment made earlier. But I think one of the things you mentioned was about double payment and also querying payments and querying before it runs out of the month end and things like that. Those seem to be the nobody admits that it ever happens. Oh no, we never pay invoices twice. But actually, those are the things that cost you more money than some of the discount penalties that you get.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very difficult when a customer phones up and says. Or a supplier phones up and says, we need payment now. It's very easy to then go and make, a quick payment to them. But then remembering to go back and stop the payment that would have gone in the system is not always remembered or not always as easy. So, stopping double payments is key.
Did you have to, this is from some personal experience, did you have to stipulate anything about invoice layout formats? To your suppliers?
No, we haven't actually. When we did the data capture work for Spain, we just took our top 50 customers, so had a variety of layouts, and then learned from those as to where the common places and the common phrases to identify POs or amounts and things like that would be. So no, we've never gone back to our customers and advised them on any specific way to be billing us.
And that's quite important, Pete. Would you agree technically that you can do all that?
Yes, absolutely.
Question then, has come in. What is the average time after scanning that an invoice is visible in the ERP?
As soon as the document is scanned in and is available in the system, then when you're making a call, it will be available in the ERP. There shouldn't be any delay at all.
Okay. And then a question that is interesting, especially on the archive side to some extent. Central storage in Budapest versus different legal rights in different countries. Is there any problem with that?
Every country has different requirements, that is true. So, for example, when the UK send invoices to Budapest, they can be destroyed within a month. And it's only really a month just in case we need to get something out. But there are other documents, like, for example, Germany, that need to be kept for, I think it's 10 years. There are some that are sort of between, 5 and 10 years. So, depending on the country, then the storage, will reflect that in terms of the physical documents. In terms of the digitalized documents, I mean, we don't plan to have anything deleted or ever removed. There might be archives, but it just means that there's a hard drive disk sitting on a shelf somewhere which could always be loaded back up. So we are fully aware of the different requirements. Some documents do get sent back to countries so they can be archived there, but that is only in a very small amount of cases. The main requirement is just that if you do ever need a physical copy, they can be retrieved and sent back to the local office within X amount of days, which is normally sort of as long as it's there within a week. So our chosen archive provider in Budapest can meet those needs.
Okay, yeah, there's more to that question than I thought then. That's quite interesting. Okay, well, we're coming up to the hour. I don't know if anyone's got a last-minute question. If not, I'll just ask for a sort of a closing remark from Chris, maybe, as the lead here. Chris, what would be the sort of recommendation or takeaway that you would give to those people who are listening in?
I suppose it's twofold. I picked up on your introduction the fact about knowing your process, knowing your exceptions. I would definitely echo that from all my experience. It's very easy to just say, oh, well, it's accounts payable, we take an invoice in, it gets approved, it gets paid. But knowing your process and then bringing the ImageNow product in, I think is a better way around, rather than trying to create something around the system. And just generally on ImageNow, I think the product's very good. As I said in my presentation, it's very easy to use. The integration's easy. It's easy to train. And my personal experience of the people that work there is very good as well. I was going to say they're easy as well, but that doesn't sound right. So they're very professional, very interpersonal. If you do have any questions or queries, then they'll be happy to answer them for you and think up solutions. They're all knowledgeable in their areas. So it's a good company. It's a good product. So yeah.
Well, thank you. After a sales plug like that, I'm not going to give Luke any more airtime to make a closing remark. I'm not sure how much. Obviously, you've done some good service there to Avis, Luke, to have that sort of recommendation. Okay, we're kind of at the turn of the hour, so it falls to me to thank our speakers today, Chris Soames from Avis, Luke McFarlane from Perceptive, and Pete for your backup help there. Thank you all for tuning in. I hope you found it useful. We will return to this topic or similar over the next couple of weeks with more of our webinars. The presentation or the recording will be available on our website probably on Monday morning. If you actually need a hard copy of the slides, you can download it from there. So thanks again, and look forward to talking to you again in the next few weeks.